Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our Tafseer class. We're doing the kitab known as Al-Jami'u li Ahkam al-Qur'an, which is better known as Tafseer Al-Qurtubi. We are doing the Tafseer of Surah Al-Infitar, and tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we are starting on page 123 of volume 22. So let us begin. Bismillah walhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we are starting here from ayah number 7 of Surah Al-Infitar, where he says, الذي خلقك أي قدر خلقك من نطفة. So we did the brief verbatim translation last week. So now we'll do the translation with the tafsir as we go along. So الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك is the actual ayah that we're dealing with. So he breaks it down. الذي خلقك, the one who created you. أي قدر خلقك من نطفة, meaning that Allah is the one who had ordained your creation from a drop of sperm. فسواك, then fashioned you في بطن أمك, in your mother's womb. وجعل لك يدين ورجلين وعينين وسائر أعضائك, and Allah created for you 2 hands and 2 legs and 2 eyes and the rest of your limbs. فعدلك. If you heard my recitation earlier, فعدلك, now we were reading a different qira'ah which says فعدلك, أي جعلك معتدلا سوي الخلق كما يقال هذا شيء معدل. وهذه قراءة العامة وهي اختيار أبي عبيد وأبي حاتم. قال الفراء وأبو عبيد يدل عليه قوله تعالى لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن التقويم. Okay, let's read this first portion. So obviously when you're reading fa'adalak versus fa'addalak, one has a tashdid on it and the other one does not. So our standard qira'ah of the qira'ah of Imam Hafs rahimahullah has no shadda. So it's fa'adalak as we would see it. But Imam Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, he based his qira'ah. Now, one thing I should mention here, which is off topic, but as you know, there are 10 qira'at, the 10 well-known qira'at. They are the shadh qira'at, which are not accepted, hence why they are deemed as being shadh. We know the 7 famous qurra as they are known and all that sort of stuff. But now, we in the modern world today, 99% of people, when we talk about the recitation of the Qur'an, we only know the qira'ah of Imam Hafs rahimahullah. So it has become the norm that people think this is the only version, way that the Qur'an is read. And in the minds of certain people, they think as if the other qira'at are in some way less to it. Some people tend to even think that the other qira'at is like personal interpretations and stuff, and things couldn't be further from the truth. Each one of these qira'at, they are mutawatir. In other words, each and every single one, to read the ayah fa'adalak or fa'addalak, both of them were revealed by Jibreel alayhi salam, read by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, sent down by Allah in that manner. So when you read it, fa'addalak or fa'adalak, both of these are 100% established. That's the point to keep in mind. Not only for this ayah, but for all of the 10 qira'at, wherever there are differences between them. So Maliki Yawmiddin versus Maliki Yawmiddin, both ways are 100% authentic from Allah, not by some group or some people or some imam or somebody who had a different way of reading it. Each and every single one of these ways are absolutely rigorously authenticated and reported to having come from Allah in that manner, brought by Jibreel alayhi salam, read by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, taught to the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, and thus it came down through numerous chains, more chains than a person can gather. That's what made it mutawatir. So now, in the time of the Ottomans, now I'm speaking from a qira'ah point, so we just strayed a little bit from the topic of tafsir, but since it's related to the Quran, it's an important point to note nonetheless. So the thing was that in the early days of Islam, there was no one qira'ah which had more sway or more acceptance than others. The different ai in different parts of the world, Muslims living here and living there, some would recite in the qira'ah of Imam, like Warsh, some would read in Susi, Qalun, the different ways. The qira'ah of Imam Ibn al-Kathir, not Imam Ibn Kathir of the Tafseer, Imam Abu Ubaid, Imam Abu Amr, etc., etc. So that's how it went for many years. Then came along the time of the Ottoman, and the Ottoman Empire, as as you know, ended up coming up first with the what you call it now, the printing system. Now, they didn't create the printing system, it was already there, and in the beginning time of the Ottomans, it was the Jews who had control of the printing press. So the Ottomans did not accept it at that time. Later on, they got their own printing press and they started publishing the books massively. So kitabs and everything were printed in the droves and spread to the far corners of the world. And that's how kitabs for the first time became a big thing. In the days of old, you used to have a business copying books. So a person would take a book to a particular person, and that person would write the entire book over for you. You had people like Mullah Ali Al-Qari. You had people like Aurangzeb Alamgir. People like this who would write the entire Qur'an by hand and then give it away. Like during the course of 1 year, they would write the entire Qur'an by hand. So that's how copies of the Mus'ab, as we know it, traveled far and wide. There was no printing press where you can go to a shop and order, I want 25 Mus'abs or 500. There was no such thing. So in the early days, there was no, let's put it this way, everybody didn't read one standard qira'ah. So you'd come into Egypt and you'd see people reading in the one particular qira'ah. You'll go to the other side of town and you'll find people reading in another qira'ah, because all of the qira'at were widely used at that point in time, till the time of the Ottomans. And the Ottomans came, and coming from like how it was in every part, in Egypt, they, for the most part, they read one particular qira'ah. In Sham, they read another qira'ah. In the Haramain, they read another qira'ah, and so on and so forth. And that's how it went. So by the time of the Ottomans, the qira'ah that they were reciting was the qira'ah of Imam Hafs, rahimahullah. So now what had happened, when they came now and firstly, what is important to note is that they were the rulers of the Muslim lands. So their rule spread from across the, from the one side of the Muslim world to the other side of the Muslim world. The Ottoman Empire was ruling everything. And then this, even prior to the coming of the printing press, it was obviously Ottoman scholars all over the place teaching everything like this here. So the qira'ah of Imam Hafs was already growing far and fast. And then came the printing press, and the qira'ah of Imam Hafs, as in this particular way that we recited, together with the help of their printing press and their scholars and everything like this here, it became far and wide. And the standardized, you can understand the effect of the Ottoman Empire from the Mus'ab that everybody is reading today. That 99% of people in the world, when they read a Mus'ab, they'll be reading it in this fashion. Oh, I shouldn't say 99, I should say 95%. 95% of Muslims around the world read the Mus'ab as we read it. So you can go to the Haramain, you can go anywhere. Standardized way, you're going to be hearing this qira'ah. When you hear people who have studied qira'at and maybe they're reading specially, then you'll hear them reading in another qira'ah. But generally, everybody would read in the qira'ah of Imam Hafs, which is a testimony to the far-reaching effects of the Ottoman Empire and the work that they put in for the sake of the deen. That's how the qira'ah of Imam Hafs now became the norm. Not that they try to push away the other qira'at, not at all, not in the least, because that would be kufr to do so. But it was just that this was the qira'ah that they were used to reciting, and thus the effects of how much work and spreading of Islam that they had done was that far and wide, everybody was reading in this one particular specific manner, the qira'ah of Imam Hafs, to the extent that today you find some people find it weird to hear the Qur'an being recited in another qira'ah, despite the fact that it had come down from Allah in this manner. So that's how, anyway, I digressed a great much to reach to this point, but what I was basically coming to is the fact that the various tafasir, at the time when these A'imma wrote their tafasir, it was during the age prior to the Ottomans. So therefore, there was no specific qira'ah in vogue at the time, which is why you would find, for example, Imam Al-Qurtubi, he relied upon one particular qira'ah. Imam Zamakhshari, he relied upon a different qira'ah. Imam Asyuti, rahimahullah, he relied on a different qira'ah. And so on and so forth it went. So, you had Imam Al-Qurtubi, I think he relies on the qira'ah of Imam Nafi'. Imam Suyuti, I think he relies on the qira'ah of Imam Abu Amr. And so on and so forth it went. So when you find, for example, Imam Al-Qurtubi here, he reads it, فَسَوَّاكَ فَعَدَّلَكَ, because in his qira'ah that he was relying on at that time, it was this particular qira'ah of Imam Nafi', like I say, if I'm not mistaken. So that qira'ah reads the ayah, الَّذِي خَلَقَكَ فَسَوَّاكَ فَعَدَّلَكَ. So obviously, being his qira'ah, he's reciting it in this manner. So he says that أي جعلك معتدلا سوي الخلق كما يقال هذا شيء معدل. So he sees this almost as if it is the standardized qira'ah, because this was the norm for him. And the qira'ah of Imam Hafs was not that common, so to speak, as far as he was concerned in his place there in Cordoba. So he says that جَعَلَكَ مُعْتَدِلًا سَوِيَّ الْخَلْقِ. What is the meaning of now of فَعَدَّلَكَ? He says that Allah created you مُعْتَدِلًا, proportionately, سَوِيَّ الْخَلْقِ, in a, every part of you is in proportion. كما يقال هذا شيء معدل, like how it is said that this is a well-proportioned thing. وهذه قراءة العامة وهي اختيار أبي عبيد وأبي حاتم. So he says this is the qira'ah of the amma, of the majority. So that tells you, I may have digressed and spoken now for a couple of minutes on the topic, but when you put that into context with the statement that Imam Al-Qurtubi makes now when he says هذه قراءة العامة, it is the qira'ah of the general masses, or in any case, so and of the majority, maybe, as he was saying. But the point being that he's speaking from that perspective where this particular qira'ah was in vogue in his locality. So he says it is also the chosen view of Imam Abu Ubaid and Imam Abu Hatim. He then says Imam Al-Farra and Imam Abu Ubaid says يدل عليه قوله تعالى. Another reason why they prefer this particular qira'ah as being fa'addalak, because they say, if you look in Surah At-Teen, Allah says لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that Allah has created mankind in the best of forms. So he says this ayah of Surah At-Teen is like the tafseer of this ayah over here as well, that Allah proportioned you, made you in a nice proper manner. You're not a person, your knuckles are hanging on the ground, you've got one long arm and one short arm, one long foot, one some weird thing. Allah didn't create you like that. Your arms are the same length, your legs are the same length, unless there is some deformity. But as a standard ruling, Allah created you in this well-proportioned manner, that your arms and your legs and things, everything is right for you. You're not, like I say, you standing up and your arms are hanging on the ground. It would not look normal. Now, you can literally stand up, back straight, and tie your shoelaces. It would look weird. You'd look maybe like some, not even gorillas has got that long arms. But the point being that Allah created you in a well-proportioned manner. Everything fits perfectly the way you are. He goes further. He says وقرأ الكوفيون عاصم وحمزة والكسائي فعدلك مخففا أي أمالك وصرفك إلى أي صورة شاء إما حسنا وإما قبيحا وإما طويلا وإما قصيرا. So he says the Kufis, the people from Kufa, the Imams of Kufa, who is Imam Asim, Hafs and Asim, like we read the qira'ah of Imam Hafs. The qira'ah of Imam Hafs come from Imam Asim. Hence why for example, if you got a Waterfall Islamic Institute print of the Qur'an, the Mus'ab, if you turn to the back of the Qur'an, you'll find a small rectangular block over there towards the back, near to where the surah names and the laws of tajweed are. Well, depending on which particular print, there's now 13 impressions or 15 impressions that Waterfall Islamic Institute has come out with. But anyway, you'll see over there the names of the various Qurra. So Hafs and Asim, you'll find it written like that. Imam Hafs takes his qira'ah from Imam Asim. So when he says here, Imam Asim, Imam Hamza, and Imam Al-Kisai, these were three of the main Qurra. So he says they recite the ayah in their qira'ah as being fa'adalak, which is the way, because we're reading the qira'ah of Imam Hafs from Imam Asim, so therefore we read it as fa'adalak as well. So mukhaffaf means it is without tashdeed, mushaddad and mukhaffaf, mushaddad with a tashdid, mukhaffaf without tashdid. So hence fa'adalak instead of fa'addalak. أي أمالك. Now what's the difference between فعدلك versus فعدلك? If we read the ayah as فعدلك, then it means أمالك. Allah created you and fashioned and proportioned you and turned you into whatever shape He wished. That imma hasanan wa imma qabihan. Either Allah made you looking nice or Allah made you looking ugly. Imma tawilan wa imma qasiran. Either Allah made you tall or Allah made you short, etc., etc. So you may be thinking ugly. Yes, unlike what today people are saying, you can't say ugly and stuff. The reality with the situation is that if you are not following the Western style of being politically correct, then yes, ugliness does exist, because you only realize the light when you have darkness. You only realize ease when you have difficulty. You only realize beauty when you see ugliness. Had there not been ugliness, people would not have understood the definition of beauty. If people had not underwent difficulties, they would not have realized the value of comfort and ease. So Allah had created things in this manner. So you will find a person who will be, let's put it this way, deformed, so they don't look nice, so to speak. So as a result, that's where the, you maybe you now I'm not going to go pointing at any specific type and things of the sort, but generally people can have an understanding. I'm not going to come and say, for example, you've got Quasimodo who's a hunchback and things like this here, which is not the norm. So therefore, it's something that is deemed as being a deformity. It's deemed as being something which is distasteful. Nobody goes out and say, I'm looking to get married. Bring me home. Girl tells the father, when he goes off to the masjid, bring me home. Look in the masjid if there's somebody who's a hunchback. Nobody says such a thing. Neither does a man go around and he say, go there to some shadi auntie and tell her, find me a woman who's a hunchback. It's not the norm. Find me a woman who grows a beard. It's a deformity. It's not something that people go for. So, with all of these sort of things, ugliness does exist. Yes, maybe you're not going out and telling people you are ugly. That would be wrong, because coming from the point of hurting the person's feelings and everything of that sort, and that being a sin, but it does not change the fact that there is without ugliness, there will not be such a thing as attraction, because then literally you could be looking at a person or you could be looking at a blank wall and they'd look the same to you, because there's no such thing as beauty and ugliness. They're exactly the same. So that is why, as much as people want to brush it under the carpet and say, no, it doesn't exist, in reality, from a Sharia perspective, it does indeed exist. And the reason for this is you would even find you'd find the mention made of this sort in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam not condemning it, saying you can't say a person is ugly. Now I don't want to go down that particular road, but just since I am already on that point, you find certain Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, and they did not come from, for example, let's put it this way, they went to go look for propose at least, and the parents would say no, or the woman herself would say no. Why? Because she didn't find the man attractive, and she would say, he looks like X, Y, and Z. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't stop them and say, you have no right to say such thing. Everybody is created equally and beautiful and everything like this. No, because today people will tell you can't say such things and everything of the sort. But realistically speaking, if there was something wrong in saying that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would by necessity have had to correct it. But the fact that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't reprimand them for making such statements shows that essentially there is not a problem with making such a statement. Because when Dajjal comes and he's got kafir written on his head, and he's got a bulging eye, and he's got another eye that his bulging eye has got hairs on it, he looks detestable. Now you're going to come, no, you can't judge Dajjal, he didn't create himself. You have these weird type of things that people want to go to for the sake of it being the norm amongst the kuffar, that you must be this way, accept everything, so that if Dajjal comes, shame, he didn't create himself. No, when you see this deformed, bloated eye, you're gonna know this is the Dajjal that I was told about. So Dajjal is not some cyclops. He looks closest to where eyes are concerned. Okay, no, let me not go down that road again. But anyway, so long story short, I know it's not the point of the tafsiri over here, but I figured a person may as well point out certain things because it is beliefs that people have taken on, and they've taken it as being, let's put it this way, as if this is what Islam stands for. And thus, if you speak contrary to this, the mentality and the mindset of people have now been led to believe that if you are saying such things, you're speaking against Islam, whereas Islam may not be against such things in the first place. So I take up a lot of the time in the class, often like this year lately, but it's for a specific reason, because more than just going through reading the book, it's the kitab itself, we also need to get an understanding of the deen, so that we know what is and what isn't from the deen itself, so that we go, by the time we leave the classes, we must know what is from the deen of Allah, what is acceptable within the deen of Allah, what is rejected within the deen of Allah, what is regarded as a sin in the deen of Allah, and what is just simply the opinions and personal likes and dislikes of people. But anyway, I've spent too much time on this. So he says that Allah created people in this manner, some tall, some short, whatever. وقال موسى ابن علي بن رباح اللخمي عن أبيه عن جده رضي الله عنه قال للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن النطفة إذا استقرت في الرحم أحضرها الله كل نسب بينها وبين آدم. أما قرأت هذه الآية في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك قال فيما بينك وبين آدم. Okay, so he says that Imam Musa ibn Ulay ibn Rabah al-Lakhmi narrates from his father, from his grandfather, who said that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told me, in an-nutfata, the drop of sperm, إذا استقرت في الرحم, when it takes takes form in the womb of the woman, أحضرها الله كل نسب بينها وبين آدم. Allah brings out every, you can say, every forefather between that person to be born right up to Hadrat Adam alayhi salam. He says, أما قرأت هذه الآية, have you not recited this ayah, في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك, in whatever form Allah wishes, He creates you. In other words, if I were, he says, قال فيما بينك وبين آدم, between you and Hadrat Adam alayhi salam. So if I were to put this, okay, let me, if I were to put from my side here to give you an understanding of what exactly is this meaning, you may have two people, they get married, and the husband has brown eyes and the wife has brown eyes, and the child comes out and the child has got green eyes. Now they're wondering, hey, none of us have got green eyes here. And the man accuses his wife now, were you sleeping around? Who is this man? I know the mailman has got green eyes. Maybe you were sleeping with him. Go and shoot the mailman dead. People have these sort of things. But the reality of the situation is that you have your entire lineage behind you. And today the kuffar with their DNA and genome sequencing and all these sort of stuff, then they'll tell you that, you can trace and you can tell what your lineage is going to look like. This one is going to have, your first child will have blue eyes, and that one will have green eyes, and that one will have curly hair. So they want, at least so they claim. But the point being that you have this entire DNA map, so to speak, existing within you that Allah has put there. So anywhere between you and Hadrat Adam alayhi salam, Allah can make you look like anyone. You may find the grandchild is born and the grandchild looks like the grandfather, or the child looks like the great-grandfather, great-grandmother. And people are like, looking at the picture of the great-grandfather now, you know what? The great-grandson actually looks like him, great-grand-uncle, because all of them are part of your nasab. So it doesn't mean if the child has now got green eyes or the child is darker than the parents, that now suddenly somebody had committed zina. No, it means that Allah wished to create this child resembling that previous forefather. So therefore, the child ended up looking that way. Okay, let's move on a little bit further before the time runs out. He says وقال عكرمة وأبو صالح في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك إن شاء في سورة إنسان وإن شاء في سورة حمار وإن شاء في سورة قرد وإن شاء في سورة خنزير. So Imam Ikrimah and Imam Abu Salih, they give it a slight different look. So في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك, the next ayah in the surah, ayah number 8 at least. So he says that they interpret this ayah in whatever form Allah wishes, that and Allah creates you in that form. So he says, if Allah wishes, Allah make you a human being, and if Allah wishes, Allah create you in the form of a donkey, or in the form of a monkey, or in the form of a pig. It's whichever way Allah wishes, Allah can make you that way. Now you have two things here. One, as in literally the woman gives birth to a pig, a donkey, or a monkey, for example. Or two, you come out as a human being, and then if Allah wishes, Allah transforms you into such a thing. Like how Allah had transformed the Jews, some into lizards, some into monkeys, some into pigs, and so on and so forth. So such things do take place as well. So if somewhat transmogrified, to use the correct English word, transmogrified into these various creatures, it does not mean literally in the woman there, and then she gives birth and oops, out comes a pig. Doesn't necessarily mean that. But if it did happen, and if it did happen that the woman gave birth to a monkey or a pig or a donkey or whatever the case may be, it is fully within the power of Allah to allow such a thing to happen. Allah may not create it in that form, but it does not prevent Allah from allowing such a thing to happen nonetheless. Okay, وقال مكحول إن شاء ذكرا وإن شاء أنثى. Imam Makhul, he said that في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك, this ayah of the Qur'an, that في أي سورة, in whatever form Allah wishes, Allah had created you and formed you in that particular way. So Imam Makhul, he says إن شاء ذكرا. If Allah wishes, Allah makes you a man. وَإِنْ شَاءَ أُنْثَى. And if Allah wishes, Allah makes you a female. This does not refer to transgender, that you find out, wake up one day and you feel you're a man stuck in a woman's body. Not such type. Those things are mental illnesses that people have. Here we are talking about a couple, a couple, they sleep together. A woman finds out she's pregnant. What will the child be? Male or female? Allah decides that. Unlike the kuffar who try and come and they test you babies and say, we will decide, we will put the Y chromosomes and the X and all these sort of stuff. So we'll make it a boy and we'll make it a girl and all that sort of stuff. But in reality, when a natural birth takes place, it is Allah who is the only one who decides whether it will be a boy or a girl that is born. وقال مجاهد في أي سورة أي في أي شبه من أب أو أم أو عم أو خال أو غيرهم. Imam Mujahid, he made the tafsir of في أي سورة, in whatever form. He says في أي شبه, in whatever resemblance. So you can either resemble your mother or your father or your paternal uncle or your maternal uncle or somebody else altogether. Now you may find, for example, if you take maybe you've seen Hitler. Everybody's seen a picture of Hitler, a president of Germany. And then you look at King Amanullah of Afghanistan. Olden days, you can find a picture of him. He even had a Hitler mustache. Hitler perhaps. Maybe it was in vogue at the time to have that type of mustaches. But anyway, you see a resemblance between the two. At the end of the day, one is a German, one is Afghan, but you can still get some sort of resemblance. So whichever way Allah wants to make you, you may find somebody and a woman gives birth and the child is there and the child resembles some man down the road's child. Doesn't mean she had zina with him for the child to look that way. It just means that if Allah wishes, Allah can make your child look like that other person over there too. So that's what Imam Mujahid rahimahullah says. وفي متعلقة بركبك ولا تتعلق بعدلك على قراءة من خفف لأنه تقول عدلت إلى كذا ولا تقول عدلت في كذا ولذلك منع الفراء التخفيف لأنه قدر في متعلقة بعدلك. Okay, let me see if I can finish this here within the next 5 minutes, these two paragraphs. So he says the fi في أي سورة, that fi, it is linked to ركبك. في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك. In whatever form Allah wishes you, that is how Allah makes you. So he says the fee is not related to fa'adalak in the previous ayah. According to the qira'ah of us, like Imam Hafs, which is adalak, not addalak. If you take it as addalak, then yes, you can say the fee is related to adalak. But if you say it is adalak, then we say it is linked to rakaba. So it's semantics at the end of the day, 6 or half a dozen at the end of the day, broadly speaking. So, you know, let's لأنه تقول, now we're speaking from an Arabic perspective, because you would say عدلت إلى كذا, you know, I went towards such a thing, and you don't say عدلت في كذا, I did in such a thing. Obviously English is unable to give the correct meaning across, but basically what it's showing is that adala and addala is not exactly the same, like we did in the tafsir. Where adala means to form proportionately, and adala means to turn towards something, so turn you into whatever form. So therefore he's pointing out the difference that comes about as a result of it. So it's all a lot of linguistics, so we can move on a little bit. He says وما يجوز أن تكون صلة مؤكدة أي في أي صورة شاء ركب، ويجوز أن تكون شرطية أي إن شاء ركب في غير صورة الإنسان، من صورة قرد أو حمار أو خنزير. فما بمعنى الشرط والجزاء أي في أي صورة ما شاء أن يركبك فيها ركبك. So now he's speaking again linguistics. He says the ma في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك. That ma, he says it's possible that it can it is a silatan muakkida, that in other words it is an extra in other words, it is there just for emphasis. So, في أي سورة شاء ركبك. In other words, in whatever form Allah wishes, He forms you in that particular manner. The way I translated it, my translation is basically turning the ma into a silatan muakkida, adding extra emphasis. That's that. He says it's also possible that the ma can be taken as being a shart, a condition. In other words, it's a conditional. In في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك. So he says إن شاء ركبك في غير سورة الإنسان. So in other words, when you put it as a condition, then it means if Allah wishes, then He can create you in other than the form of a human being, meaning either in the form of a pig, a monkey, or a donkey, or a pig. So the ma is in the meaning of ash-sharti wal jaza. In other words, if Allah wishes so, then Allah creates you so. If Allah wishes to create you in the form of a pig, He'll create you in the form of a pig. And if He wants to create you in the form of a monkey, He'll create you in the form of a monkey, and so on and so forth. If you take it in that way, both are linguistically possible from the ayah itself. So في أي سورة ما شاء أن يركبك فيها ركبك, meaning in whichever form that Allah, if He wishes to create you in that form, He will create you like that. And that's the end of that ayah over there, and it is where we will stop for tonight, inshallah. Not only for tonight, but it is our final tafsir class for the next 2 months, so to speak, because we will end our classes at the end of this week, and we will only resume after Eid again, inshallah, in May. So the entire March, April into May, we'll have no classes. Obviously, tomorrow is the 1st of March, and we will be doing classes tomorrow, the day after, and Thursday, the last 3 classes for the week. And then only on Thursday will be stop classes until after Eid. Obviously, I will mention it again that we are closing in the next class, and I will be at least closer to the time after Eid, I will send out a message on the WhatsApp when exactly class is resuming again, inshallah ta'ala. But that being that, we stay then for tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we end our class. Until next time, we end and we say, وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ وَسَلَّمَ وَبَارَكَ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ وَبِحَمْدِكَ نَشْهَدُ أَن لَّا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ نَسْتَغْفِرُكَ وَنَتُوبُ إِلَيْكَ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.